It is pretty effective, but man, it sure makes a mess. Yikes. This is by far the scariest thing I've done here. All right, so I had a little change of plans. What I had planned for the drawers, because I thought it would kind of look weird, was just going to be a flat front drawer that would be painted. After thinking about it a little bit, I thought that with the doors and having sort of this recessed panel and then these X's that go across there, I thought the drawer fronts themselves would look better if they were kind of the same with this inset look. So I've gone ahead and I made one prototype here. So the doors are going to have like a 2-inch thick rail and stile, or whatever you call that, that make up the frame of the door. And then there's this inset panel. And then for it to look right and there not to be just a teeny weeny gap here on the drawers, I'm using a thinner, so like 1 inch right in here. So that's fine and dandy, except that that presents challenges because I wasn't sure exactly how I should go about joining these 1-inch strips. So overall, I'm happy enough with this, but I didn't really intend to use pocket holes and have this on the front. The problem is on the back. You can see that I used a rabbiting bit and a router, 3/8 inch rabbet, that goes along here, and then I cut the plywood to the right width and then sanded the circle to make it fit there. The problem is then I have to be able to attach this into the drawer. This is the false front. I got to be able to attach this into the drawer front. So I have to make sure that I'm screwing and I have enough material here to screw through this thicker material and not just this 1/4 inch stuff, which isn't even a 1/4 of an inch. It's thinner than that. Once I got all these pieces cut up, the next step was to drill all of my pocket holes and then assemble everything to get it ready for routing around the back side of it to accept the recessed panel. And so here I give you a little overview of my quote-unquote router table. So this is the router table. It's just a scrap piece of plywood that I had laying around, and honestly, it is not the very flattest thing in the world, but I think for my purposes, it's going to do the job okay. And then I've got this old Black & Decker router that was my dad's, sat in a shed for probably 20 years and was never used, and it survived and worked great, and so I've been using that. And anyway, so this is my router table, and it works okay for these purposes. Okay, so I decided to do a new narration here for this section of the video because I wasn't explaining things clearly. What I'm trying to show is that I've struck a line on my pieces that I'm going to join to be the sort of the frame of this drawer front. And where that line is where I want to put my pocket hole, so that once the screw's in there, I can bring this over to this makeshift router table, and I have enough room to route my rabbet around the inside without coming close enough to hit one of those screws with the router bit, because that would be disastrous. And I would just say, for anybody looking to do something similar to this, I would not do this again in the future. This was really kind of dangerous, especially looking back at the footage. And if I were to do this again, I would probably use dowels or some other kind of wooden connection that wouldn't matter if I actually hit it with the router bit, because this is just really sketchy. after assembling these frames and sanding them, the next step was to go ahead and try out the router and see how that worked. All right, so I'm just going to compare one more time and make sure that my pocket is 3/8 of an inch. And it is, so should be good to go. This is by far the scariest thing I've done here. I do not like that bit sticking out of there, but I just didn't have any other easier option. In any case, I've got successfully here my little rabbet in there, and so I'm gonna move on to cutting the plywood panels that will go in there and then rounding the corners to fit them in, and we should be all set to go. So glad that's over with. So I just finished putting these drawer fronts on here, and I haven't actually put them on, you know, obviously I don't know if you can tell from that angle, but they're on there just temporarily. They're actually just stacked up. And part of what I'm running into is the fact that I apparently mismeasured. And I'm not sure exactly how I did that, because I measured the opening and I thought I did it, but I think this is just one of the things that a DIYer first time is going to run into. I basically have a 1/16 of an inch clearance with these bottom two, which this is only one drawer, but I wanted it to look more even, that there would be you know, 4 drawers instead of the look of 3. So there's going to be a slight gap on the ends of this rail so that it can get right in there, which means that my tolerances here have to be really, really small. So my plan now is to just shave off a little bit from each one of these pieces. So from these two here, I'm going to take, like, I don't know honestly how much I need to take. So I'm just going to, like I said, shave just a little bit off of this drawer front, this panel, or this, I can't even remember, styles, this rail, I guess, and then a little bit off of this. And I think that these are actually slightly sized larger, because I thought I measured correctly that they would be slightly larger than these ones, because I messed up my spacing in the very beginning. So anyway, I don't think it's going to be noticeable to the naked eye anyway, I hope. But this is what I got to do. I got to shave some of this off, which is a little nerve-wracking because I glued this all up, and I've got those pocket screws in there, so I can't afford to take much off before I risk running into something there. So, but I don't want to make this inner bottom rail so thin that it really looks different than these two. All right, here we go. Wish me luck. Overall, I think that looks pretty good. It'll look much better when painted, obviously, but for now, and I didn't really care too much about the direction of the grain or anything there, because that's all going to get sanded and painted anyway. And otherwise, yeah, I think that should be about it. On to the doors.